1010XL is presented by Farrah & Farrah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Second down, 13. 45 of Baltimore. Brunell back in the pocket. Has a bit of time now being chased. Plants throws. He's looking downfield. He's got a receiver. And it is caught. Jimmy Smith at the 5. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Jacksonville. He just Wayne Starks for 45 yards.
Barks out for signals. Drops to throw. Has time. Fires the slant. Jimmy's got it this time. 35, 30. Middle of the field. 20. He's going to the 20-yard line. He's going to score. 10, 5. Jimmy Smith. Touchdown. And the Jaguars are right back in this ball game. Barks out the signals. Pressure coming. Steps up. Steps. Turns. Throws. He's got Jimmy. First down. 20. There he goes. 10, 5. Touchdown. Win. Jacksonville. Done under pressure. Steps to avoid. Turns and throws. He's got him in. Caught Jimmy. Inside the 40-yard line to the 37 and down to the 36.
Congratulations to Jimmy Smith. That is now his 800th career reception, and what a play to get it on.
This team winning right now, it helps bring so much attention to our franchise, what we did back in the day, like we were talking about, these Hall of Fame conversations. But when we're winning, we see the conversations pick up. So we have noticed that. So obviously, I'm pulling for my team to get to this Super Bowl.
1010XL 92.5 FM presents Jaguars Today with your hosts Mike Dempsey, Tony Smith, and Dylan Denmark.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome into Jaguars Today on this Thursday, the 6th of March. Mike Dempsey, Tony Smith, Dylan Denmark here with you. We got a loaded show, got a couple of guests coming on today, but we've got room for you as well if you want to react to the big Jaguar news that came down about 22-ish hours ago, Tony. I'm convinced they like to schedule these press releases for right when we get off the air. Mm-hmm. But Christian Kirk will be released by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and his tenure here in Jacksonville has come to an end. I heard you talking with Dan and Jeff. Jeff saying there's no scuttlebutt out there about Christian Kirk maybe circling back and re-signing with the team. I would suspect that they had a conversation of this is the price point we'd love for you to play at. Are you open to doing that? And Christian Kirk thinks, he's still in his 20s.
Yeah.
He can still get that big deal on the open market.
See it on the market, and maybe, at the end of this process for Christian Kirk, they circle back around to one another. Maybe. I mean, I'm not saying that that's impossible. That's the way this works out, but I've heard nothing that indicates that will be the way that this story works out.
No, it feels like his time here in Jacksonville is done.
Yeah.
And when he was healthy, he was a very good player. I thought, that first year silenced a lot of critics who felt he couldn't take on a bigger role, or at least one where he could be a team's leading receiver. Had 133 targets, caught 84 balls, 1,108 yards, and, did a hell of a job for them. Ben couldn't stay healthy the last 2 years.
There are plenty of things over the course of time on this show that we've been wrong about, or either of us have been wrong about with different things, contracts, players, that kind of the excitement we have for certain things. But when he signed that contract and we said it's not a big deal and it will be even less of a deal by the time we get to the end of this, Christian Kirk, I think, is getting paid as like the 28th highest paid receiver in the league if he came back on his current deal, right? Like if he played out the final year of his contract in Jacksonville, he'd be getting 28th highest paid money in the league, and more guys are going to pass him, right? Like this offseason, we said it when it happened. The money is not a big deal. The league can freak out about it all they want. In the end, none of that's going to mean anything. Tyreek Hill got that big deal the next day, right? Like already leapfrogged him. And now we've seen 25 other guys do it, and they all make sense. Like none of the guys that were leapfrogging Christian Kirk, we weren't going, I don't get that. I don't get that. Like it was a bunch of guys that we were like, oh, yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, $24 million, though, as a cap hit is too big.
It's too big.
For Christian Kirk, you're pushing up against close to a tenth of your salary cap space.
Well, when he signed, look, the average yearly, which is what we always talk about with that deal, was 18.
Right.
Right. The cap hit's 24. If it was 18, I think this decision would be a lot more difficult. Right. I think that's likely they make the same decision they just made.
Well, it's 14 as it is right now without having him. So if it was 18, an extra $4 million to actually have Christian Kirk would seem
it makes
pretty
it harder.
reasonable.
Yeah, it makes it harder to make the decision that they made yesterday, but the 24 makes it easy.
But look, now the Jags are pushing up close to $50 million in cap space.
Yep.
Doesn't mean they can't go reallocate that $10 million in savings and add another $10 million on top of it and go after a guy like Chris Godwin or maybe, they will take a run at Devontae Adams. I don't think there's much of a chance in hell that Devontae Adams would choose to play here in Jacksonville for the reasons we detailed the other day. Who knows? Maybe they'll get in the DK Metcalf sweepstakes. I did see, there was some Pittsburgh writer, might have been Alan Saunders, who said that he thinks the ask from Seattle would be like the 21st pick in the draft. And is it Roman Wilson was the rookie receiver they drafted last year? Didn't do a whole lot in his rookie year. Like that would be the package he thought they'd receive. I don't know if anyone's giving a first-round pick when you've got to turn around and immediately give DK Metcalf, probably $30 million a year, something in that ballpark on top of it. Those first-round picks, the value comes in the cost control that you can get with those guys. I saw another reporter indicate that they had heard that somebody might have put a third-rounder on the table. Now, if you want to talk about the 70th pick in the draft, and going out and getting DK Metcalf to pair with Brian Thomas Jr. for the next 4 years, that's a different story. Even though you have to pay him, the Jags, there's no reason. The Jags can pay anyone they want in free agency. They just
don't
can't
have to pay
an unlimited
BTJ.
number of players.
Yeah, they're not having to pay BTJ right now. So allocating that money that way to the room, fine.
Sure.
Right? Like if you have to pay $6 million more than you were going to pay Christian Kirk this year, for instance, the impact of DK Metcalf on your roster compared to the impact of Christian Kirk playing opposite Brian Thomas Jr. and the different ways you can imagine them using those two guys, right? In the pass game offense, I think it's worth that kind of money if they can find the right price point to make that kind of thing happen. We are at the time of year where all the NFL media guys, the Schefters and the Rappaports and the Pelisseros, everything that gets done by every team on any signing, we can look at it and all see, he's going to be the fourth linebacker on that team. And their reaction to it will be big-time impact, player they wanted, can't wait to see what it's going to be. When it's guys that are at the level of DK Metcalf, the immediate stories that are coming out is, the ask is a first and a third.
Right.
And you only have to think about it for 2 seconds to say, from who?
Well, the ask is easy to figure out who the ask is coming from, but the answer is probably no thank you.
Like, who's giving that? And certainly I don't think it's going to wind up with DK Metcalf being released, right? And so if you're Seattle...
No, Seattle said they're going to do the best for them, which would be, if worst comes to worst, you're playing here for one more year.
Right. It's the T. Higgins thing that we were talking about last offseason before the franchise tag came down. It's some guys, they can say whatever they want. Right? The player can say whatever they want. The team side of it's going to be, why would we want to go into next year without that guy on our roster unless you give us a reason to move on from him? Right? So, they're asking a first and a third if that's what they're asking. I'm like, that makes sense. It also tells you it's probably unlikely that he's getting moved, is what it says in my mind more than anything, is I don't think DK is going to be playing anywhere but Seattle. Now, I don't know. His personality seems volatile enough that he'll make a lot of noise, and that may make it uncomfortable for him going forward in Seattle. I don't know when you reach a breaking point on that, but my expectation at this point is that he's going to be the wide receiver in Seattle next year.
Maybe. I don't know. I think there are enough teams out there that are looking for a number one that something might get done here, particularly when you've got Green Bay that's got that wealth of young receivers that they could package one in with a draft pick.
They could.
And if you're looking to move on and, you feel like Jackson Smith and Jigba's ready for a bigger role, I don't know if he is a true number one. I think everyone would benefit, much like Brian Thomas Jr. would benefit from having a DK Metcalf-type presence or a Devontae Adams-type presence.
Yeah.
Those guys would benefit as well from having a Brian Thomas Jr. presence.
Absolutely.
And that's something that Christian Kirk didn't really give you. He didn't tilt defensive strategy in his direction.
No.
He didn't force double teams. Not saying he was never double teamed in his career,
he was a really good two.
He was a good. He'd be a really good three.
He'd be a top of the league three.
Right.
He's a really good two. Like he's not a bad two.
He's not a bad two.
But they never had a one.
Correct.
Right, until this year, and they didn't realize they had the one until Kirk got hurt.
And Kirk wasn't playing at a super high level last year either. So look, it makes a lot of sense from a lot of standpoints. Christian Kirk is renowned as being one of the most professional players in that current Jaguar locker room. So wish him nothing but the best. He gave everything he had. Not his fault that he got hurt. And, it's not like he was a malingerer or anything like that. And, I get it. He's close with Trevor Lawrence. You know who else was close with Trevor Lawrence? Zay Jones. You know who else? Marvin Harris.
Whoever
or
the
Marvin
next guy
Jones
that
Jr.
plays with him is going to be.
The next guy, Brian Thomas Jr., probably rapidly becoming super close with Trevor Lawrence right now. Yeah. If I'm Parker Washington, I'm just, walking through the neighborhood until Trevor notices me outside. I'm just going to keep going up and down the street. So today, obvious what the question today is going to be. What is your reaction to the Jags deciding that they're going to part ways with Christian Kirk? Love to hear your take on that at 641-1010 on the phone lines or on the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosures. The earlier you get in, the better, because we do have a couple of guests coming up today. We got Gus Logue, who hosts Duval Rundown here at 1010 XL, who we had planned on bringing in, and we'll do some of this talking about some trade down scenarios for the Jaguars in the draft, but also, what do the Jags do from here? How good of a fit or not is Parker Washington in a projected Liam Cohen offense? Pete Prisco is going to join us in hour number 2 as well. And you can hit us up this morning on a variety of social media platforms at MD_1010XL, at 1010XL Fat Tony, and at 1010XL Denmark.
I need some Girl Scout cookies.
Have you had any in the last week or so, Dylan?
No, but a bad feeling happened to me yesterday, man. You know when you leave food in the oven for a little too long and it gets burnt?
Yes.
That happened to me yesterday.
What'd you cook?
Freaking garlic knots. I wanted some garlic knots so bad. And
what'd they come out like?
Oh, black.
Blackened husks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On occasion,
Crispy.
I've done that with a steak in the broiler, right? And you're like, man, shoe leather. But what a shame. As I've gotten older, Tony, when I was younger, I used to go more well done on the steaks. I'm more medium rare guy now. I don't know if my palate's more refined or whatever the case may be. But anyhow, that's a damn shame on the garlic knot still. And keep us updated on all the various food things you're putting together there. What else we got? The YouTube virtual studio chat. You can interact with the program that way. I think we've got it all out there. So let's go to your calls and reaction coming up next. If you'd like to get in on Christian Kirk and the Jags parting ways here, the Jags deciding to move on, and where does that leave them in terms of wide receiver being in need for this football team? Not that it's completely unexpected. It's been bandied about as a possibility the entirety of the offseason. They obviously are not going to be blindsided. They're the ones who decided to do this. They saw it coming. I'm sure they've got a plan. Whether they can execute it well enough to make them a contender in 2025, that will be laid out as time goes by. Mike Dempsey, Tony Smith, Dylan Denmark here with you, taking your calls straight ahead. This is Jaguars Today on 1010XL 92.5 FM. Hey, folks, Mike Dempsey here for Awaken 180 Weight Loss. That's right. They recently celebrated the 10-year anniversary and are absolutely thriving as a leader in the weight loss industry. Over a decade ago, their founder, Paige, developed a long-term solution for weight loss, and along the way, cut through the misconceptions of lose weight quick gadgets, fad diets, and medications. You don't need injections with Awaken 180. You don't need some crazy rigorous exercise program. You're going to eat to lose weight, and along the way, turn your body into a fat-burning machine. You get lasting results, and the great thing is those results come with free support for life. Hit your goal weight with Awaken 180, and all the coaching and support you need is absolutely free. It's the backbone of the Awaken 180 program, and after a decade, 23,000 clients have lost more than a combined 750,000 pounds, gotten a lot healthier along the way as well. You could be the next Awaken 180 success story. Go online to schedule a free consultation at awaken180weightloss.com. That's Awaken 180 Weight Loss.
Jaguars Today. From the Renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors Studios of 1010XL.
I guess they just don't make them like they used to, huh? No! Nobody ever made them like this.
This is 1010XL.
This is it. This is definitely it.
Enhance your home with Renewal by Anderson's exclusive 31-day spring event. Experience superior craftsmanship and timeless design with buy one, get one 40% off custom replacement windows and patio doors. Enjoy the ease of zero down, no payments, and no interest for 12 months. This offer expires March 31st. Renewal by Anderson, proud partner of the Florida Gators. Visit bestwindowsflorida.com to schedule your free consultation.
License number CGC 1527613. Get a healthy start in 2025. The Florida Department of Health in Duval County is here to encourage you to get healthy and stay healthy this year. They have a dedicated team who are committed to providing quality care. The goal is to protect, promote, and improve the health of you and your family. Visit duval.floridahealth.gov to learn more about their health programs and services. That's duval.floridahealth.gov.
Your yard starting to look a little like a jungle? Well, it might be time for a little TLC. Or how about RTC, Russell Tree Care? At Russell Tree Care, they give your trees the perfect haircut. Whether it's trimming or removing, they'll make sure your yard looks its best, all while keeping safety as a top priority. Call Russell Tree Care today and let them take care of your trees. Russell Tree Care, 844-4Mr. Wood. That's 844-467-9663. Or visit RussellTreeCareLLC.com today. Your trees will thank you.
Jaguars Today Thursday is towed by Cannons of Jacksonville for all your towing needs.
Haymaker Coffee is a local coffee brand to help fuel your daily grind. Why Haymaker? It's fuel for the morning hustle, the late night, and every step of the way. Bold flavors for the bold city. Online at haymakercoffeeco.com.
To catch more fish, you gotta think like a fish. Captain Kevin and the Ring Power Fishing Forecast Show, reeled in by the Pest Pros at Royal Pest Services, and Awaken 180 Weight Loss.
Thursday nights at 6
on 1010XL AM.
Don't miss the Players Championship, March 11th through 16th at TPC Sawgrass. This can't-miss event features a variety of activities for every fan to enjoy, from delicious bites to the Sawgrass Splash. There are endless fan enhancements that will make for a memorable experience. Plus, watch the top PGA Tour players, including back-to-back champion Scotty Scheffler, take on the iconic stadium course featuring the famous Island Green. Tickets available at theplayers.com.
The LPGA Stars of Tomorrow are at the Epson Tours Atlantic Beach Classic, presented by Access Golf, March 6th through the 8th at Atlantic Beach Country Club. Tickets available at AtlanticBeachClassic.com. See the ladies shine on the First Coast.
Hey Jacksonville, it's Lauren from Helmets and Heels wishing you a happy new year. Start 2025 off strong by giving your car the expert care it truly deserves at Big Chief Tire. Their skilled technicians will keep your vehicle running smoothly all year long, whether you're commuting, traveling, or just cruising around town. Visit WeKeepJacksRollin.com or call 904-932-0950 to schedule an appointment and start the new year off right. Big Chief Tire keeps Jacks rolling.
With 50 years of fabrication expertise in towing products, the family at Cannons of Jacksonville can repair or install precisely what you need to tow with confidence. Visit cannonsofjacks.com, where quality and customer satisfaction collide.
Looking for adventure? Need a machine that works as hard as you do? CF Moto has you covered. At Ride Now Beach Boulevard, we've got CF Moto ATVs and UTVs built for any task, any trail, anytime. Tear up the dirt with the trail-tested C-Force ATV lineup or conquer through terrain with a Z-Force UTV. Find your CF Moto ride today at Ride Now Beach Boulevard or visit ridenowbeachboulevard.com. ATVs and UTVs are for riders 16 and older. They can be hazardous to operate. CF Moto recommends an improved safety training course.
Jags fans, here's your chance to score a trip to Green Bay for round one of draft night. Through the Everbank Draft Night Experience Sweepstakes, one lucky winner and a guest will be there live and in person to see the Jaguars make their first pick. To enter, visit everbank.com/draft by April 4th. That's everbank.com/draft. No purchase necessary to enter or win. Open to legal residents of the 50 United States and D.C. 18 and older. Entry period from 3/3/25 to 4/4/25. For official rules, prize description, odds of winning, and other details, visit everbank.com/draft. Sponsor and administrator, Everbank N.A.
For the greenest, luscious lawn on the block, choose the local legends, Roundtree Sod. Don't just settle for ordinary. Let Roundtree Sod deliver you a picture-perfect lawn. To get a free estimate, call 7414-SOD. 7414-SOD.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Jaguars Today on 1010XL.
All right, we'll get these phone calls in a second, but we've got some breaking news on the Jaguar front, so why don't we discuss it, Dylan, with today's 10-10 Take.
10-10
10-10 Take.
Now, Mike Dempsey's 10-10 Take. is serviced by Ideal Conditions Heating and Air, your go-to local HVAC company. Veteran owned and operated.
All right, Jaguars center Mitch Morse moments ago on Instagram has announced his retirement from the National Football League. Says the things I'll remember and cherish most about my career are the relationships and bonds I created with my teammates, both on and off the field. Nothing can replace that, and I'll miss it dearly. I want to thank the Chiefs, Bills, and Jacksonville Jaguars for 10 unforgettable seasons. Most of all, I want to thank my wife, Caitlin, my children, Kennedy and Deacon, for their constant love and support on this journey. I look forward to spending more time with them as I navigate retirement. So, look, we knew Mitch Morse only had a year left, right? Mm-hmm. But, Tone, this is an immediate hole now on the roster, and all of a sudden, Drew Dahlman looks a lot more attractive in free agency. Look, I get it. You want to go young on the offensive line. He is still only 26 years old, by the way, best center on the market, whereas there are a plethora of guards in this draft, not as many great center prospects, at least according to the pundits that follow that more closely than you and I probably do. Mm-hmm. But even if you could find one, I don't want to necessarily start a rookie center and a rookie guard together with a lot of other, youth on that line. Anton Harrison only going into his third year on the right side and needs a bounce-back season. So I wonder where that puts center on the priority list for the Jaguars in free agency. Again, not a deep group, but I saw a projection for Drew Dahlman to get $14 million a year on average. I think by CBS Sports. Tony, I told you, I think it was yesterday maybe we were discussing it. I said maybe 2 days ago, I'll give him $15 million a year right now. Mm-hmm. Creed Humphrey's at the top of the market, 18, but there's a gap between him and the next guy. Drew Dahlman will probably end up being the second highest paid center in the National Football League. And if I could lock down that position, say for the next 4 to 5 years with a guy who's currently 26 years old, I think it's a avenue the Jags need to seriously consider. I'm sure, look, they probably, I don't know if this is sprung upon them. They might have had some sense that this was coming. Only thing I would have said, maybe could you hold this off to next week, right? If you're Mitch, really, could you announce it a week later and then we can strike as quickly as possible if that's a path we want to go down at least. Mm-hmm. What other options do they have on this team? We're not going back to Luke Fortner, I don't believe.
I wouldn't think.
Right? So center becomes a big hole on this football team immediately with Mitch Morse announcing his retirement.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised given, as you said, the prospects that are available in this year's draft at that position, knowing you're going to have to add somebody a right guard as well, and the options for adding a right guard are way better than they are at center, right, in this draft. So a veteran like Dahlman being available in free agency, I thought a couple days ago he's likely to be relatively high, right, in the priority list for the Jaguars. Now I'm more and more sure that he might be the top.
He might be number one, right? Because, look, you may say, oh, what about Carlton Davis or any other individual corner? Well, if you miss on one, there's several other good ones.
You can fall back on something.
Right. And so, I look, the Jags currently now with the Christian Kirk release have approximately $47 million. They're going to save a little bit of money on Mitch Morse's contracts, but let's not even roll that in right now. $47 million. Spend $15 a year on Dahlman. Spend $15 a year on a corner. You still have $17 million left. Easily pay your rookie crop and still have room for, some low-level depth type signings in free agency, either early, post June 1, whatever the case may be. So I still think it's very doable for them to come away with a couple of starters here, and maybe now a little bit more of a necessity that they do exactly that.
Yeah, I don't know how many teams in the league have as clear a need at center as the Jaguars are going to have, and I'm not paying attention to enough of the teams and those kind of needs in the league. They're not going to be alone, right, with Dahlman being towards the top of the list of the guys that you're going to want to talk to first when the tampering window opens up on Monday to try to figure it out, because as we just went through, the options aren't deep. At that position specifically, they're not deep. So the interest is only going to be driven up and up and up because of the scarcity available to teams.
All right, let's get a call or two in if you want to react to anything going on in Jaguar world as we get closer to free agency. The news is accelerating. Christian Kirk released yesterday. Mitch Morse announcing his retirement this morning. Eric on the west side going to lead us off today at 641-1010. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good. What's up, man?
I feel a little sad only because the questions and the concerns is we want to get Trevor better, we want to get the best out of Trevor, and I just feel like you let a guy go in Christian Kirk, who is practically like his best friend or whatnot, and his safety valve on key situations, and that's going to be a huge thing in this offseason as far as building that trust with a new receiver, by that being Devontae or DK or even a rookie at this point. And now that we just found out that Mitch Morse is gone, so now we got to find at least a solid young stud at center, so him and Trevor can have that relationship, as far as making sure that he's progressing to where we want him to go.
All right, hey, appreciate it, man. Look, I'm not honestly that worried about it. Look at Washington, for instance. They went to the NFC Championship game, right? Okay, Terry McLaurin's back. So is Brian Thomas Jr. here. Like, their next 4 receivers are free agents on Washington. Do you think they won't figure it out? Will Jaden Daniels be able to develop chemistry with somebody? Yeah, of course he will. Mm-hmm. Christian Kirk caught 27 passes last year. He was not available that much. And when he was not having a very good year, right? He played in 8 games. So if you double that production, 54 catches on the whole season, Tony, less than 800 yards is what he was on pace for in 16 games. I know it's a 17-game season, but right. I mean, he scored once last year, had some critical drops. Again, I'm not saying Christian Kirk can't be a good, solid player, and he can be in the National Football League. I just don't think they thought they're going to get $24 million worth of cap hit in terms of impact out of him. And this is a business decision. Nobody's saying he's all of a sudden a bad player, but teams make these kind of decisions all the time, that when your productivity doesn't match what you're on the hook for, at least what we're on the hook for financially, doesn't make sense to continue down that road. I'm not worried. Look, Trevor's thrown to Parker Washington. He's thrown some to Gabe Davis. Right now, Evan Ingram's still on this roster. We don't know what kind of role he's going to have. Brenton Strange is going to be back. And Brian Thomas Jr., they started to build a relationship last year. That's kind of the nature of the National Football League. You got to find guys. And, like, if I said that they're going to bring in Devontae Adams, are you going to worry about the chemistry? You right. Say, hey, we got a much more talented player. Now, again, I don't believe they're bringing in Devontae Adams. These big-name receivers out there, who knows? I don't know what they're thinking, Tone, but the Mitch Morse retirement does put center on the front burner in a big way right now. At least you felt like you had a stopgap there. Maybe you could find one in the draft in the 4th round and then have him ready to start for you by next year or whatever. Now it's an immediate concern for this football team, And again, look, just because I think the most likely starter they find is going to be a corner doesn't mean that's true. Maybe they go the Chris Godwin route and they try to make a run at Dolman or some other offensive lineman, and they end up drafting a couple of corners in free agency because you do have Tyson Campbell, you do have Jarian Jones, and you maybe try to piecemeal it together at that other spot for a year until one of these guys, leaps ahead of the crowd. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe it could turn into a scenario where corner's more of a priority in the draft than we may feel like it is right now.
Could be.
Right? And that's not unreasonable as a path for the football team, given, look, I do think them not having a center basically right now, I can't imagine anyone would feel okay with Fortner going back into that position as the plan.
No.
Going into next season. So you got to do something at that position specifically, and it's just there aren't a whole lot of options.
Who knows? Maybe they fill center or an offensive line position and a secondary position in free agency, and they draft Ted McMillan at 5, or they move back a couple of spots and draft him. And then you're looking at BTJ and McMillan, and then some combination of Gabe Davis and Parker Washington and Evan Ingram and Brenton Strange filling in, the rest of the receiving depth chart.
Yeah, the combination of the moves of moving on from Christian Kirk, and it was one of those things where it felt like I didn't know exactly how I'd feel about them letting go of Christian Kirk until they did, right? Like, I've always been in my head going through the gymnastics of it thinking, I think I'd be fine with it. And then it happened, and I was like, oh, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world, right, for them to be moving on past Christian Kirk. That was my reaction yesterday when it broke, so it certainly opens up the door when it happened for, all right, what are they going to do at wide receiver? Right? Like, what's the plan to replace that in your locker room? Well, now they got to figure out what are we going to do to replace that and a starting center that's been opened up in the last 24 hours.
Look, they got holes. There's no question. Mike Garofalo reporting that Mitch Morse had $1.5 million guaranteed this upcoming season, that he'll pass on that, but he does not have to pay back any signing bonus allocations, which Jags could go after. I think he's, $800,000 of his signing bonus counts against the cap. So the belief is that 1.5 is the number that will now hit the cap for the Jaguars this year because he retired, which will save him another roughly $4-ish million. Don't quote me on the numbers. Just doing this on the fly, they should have about $50 million in cap space. Well, and again, you want to build through the draft. All that's well and good. You don't want to start 8 or 9 rookies either, right? You got to fill some spots with some level of a guy who's done it before at the National Football League level of play. All right, let's take a time out here. We'll come back and talk about all these things and more with Gus Logue, host of Duval Rundown here at 1010 XL. Pete Prisco, a little under about 45 minutes away, I guess, is the best way to describe it. About 11:15, he will join us here on Jaguars Today on what's turned into quite a busy morning. We knew Christian Kirk going to be released. Mitch Morse deciding to retire and announcing that this morning, making center a gaping hole to be filled for the Jacksonville Jaguars at the present time. All that and more coming your way. This is Jaguars Today on 1010XL, 92.5 FM.
Jaguars Today for the Renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors Studios.
Welcome, John, our new admin lead.
Thanks.
You've got your laptop, all your admin apps. Oh, and you'll be in charge of ordering food for the team. So here's your drawer full of menus.
Whoa.
You'll keep your receipts in this file folder. Whoops, receipt confetti.
Oh, dear.
Oh, and all these sticky notes have everyone's dietary preferences.
Have you tried Easy Cater? Online ordering from great restaurants, tools to save time and stay on budget, digital receipts in one place.
We're gonna need a bigger recycling bin.
Easy Cater, the smarter, simpler way to order food for your workplace. Order now at easycater.com.
Don't miss the Players Championship, March 11th through 16th at TPC Sawgrass. This can't-miss event features a variety of activities for every fan to enjoy, from delicious bites to the Sawgrass Splash. There are endless fan enhancements that will make for a memorable experience. Plus, watch the top PGA Tour players, including back-to-back champion Scotty Scheffler, take on the iconic stadium course featuring the famous Island Green. Tickets available at theplayers.com.
Jaguars Today, Thursday, is brought to you by
Cannons of Jacksonville.
Are you thinking about a pool for your home? Blue Haven Pools is Jacksonville's largest pool builder. They've built pools for over 20,000 satisfied families since 2000. It's never been easier to design the perfect pool for your home, family, and budget. Call Blue Haven Pools today at 904-620-0090 to get a free in-home estimate for your in-ground pool, or visit bluehaven.com. Don't let another summer pass by without a pool. Join thousands of happy Jacksonville pool owners in a Blue Haven pool.
Hey y'all, I'm Hannah with the Deck Guys. We've been locally owned and operated for over 10 years in the outdoor living space. If you are looking to get spring projects started, like a new deck, pavers installed, or maybe a pergola, we would love to earn your business. Just remember,
call the Deck Guys if you want a brand new deck, pavers, or more. Call 904-813-2474.
TheDeckGuysJacks.com.
I'm Max Fink. Join me for the Gator Report on 1010XL as I break down the latest storylines in Gator Nation.
Put together by San Jose Collision on the home of the Florida Gators, 1010XL.
Go, Gator! Greenlaw Group is for the insured. If you think you have roof damage, call 904-302-7055 today, and they will schedule you a free roof inspection. Trust their law firm to help you fight your insurance when you need it. These storms can cause damage you may not even see yet. Call Greenlaw Group, 302-7055. There's no cost to retain their law firm and no cost to have your roof inspected. They only get paid if you win. Greenlaw Group, for the insured.
Plumbing problem? AC acting up? Septic tank trouble? Don't waste time calling 3 different companies. Just call Duck Duck Rooter. We offer plumbing, septic, and air conditioning services, making it easy for you to work with one trusted company and one simple bill. Every department has highly skilled experts trained for the job. For fast, reliable service from a company that does it all the right way, call 904-862-6769 or visit DuckDuckRooter.com.
Yo, this is Tony from Tony D's. Are you looking for a great slice of pizza? Well, we have about 12 varieties. Most places won't have slices of pizza after lunch. At Tony D's, you can get a slice all day. It's always fresh at Tony D's Pizza. Bay Meadows and 295.
Hello, this is Father Nicholas Lowe, and I want to talk to you about not looking at the rear-view mirror of unforgiveness. It's so easy to keep looking in the past when someone has hurt or offended us. What we don't realize that if we keep looking at the rear-view mirror of anger, it will cause us to miss out on the good things that God has in store right in front of us. Friends, looking in the rear-view mirror of the past will never give you peace in the present.
For more inspiration, log on to stjohnthedivine.com.
Hey, this is David with Royal Pest Services. The fact that we've been bundled up the past month gave us an idea. Let's bundle up also with our Centricon and Pest Control Bundle, starting at $349. Visit RoyalPestServices.com for your free inspection.
Keeping kids active is a full-time job for parents. Look no further, though, than I-9 Sports, covering Duval, St. John's, and Clay to get your youngster in the game. Spring and summer registration open right now for flag football, soccer, t-ball, and basketball. Plus, all new girls volleyball at Duval Charter Bay Meadows. I-9 Sports with fields and gyms all over 3 counties. And the best thing is I-9 Sports offers sports year-round so kids can always find a sport to play. i9sports.com. Enter 1010 in the promo code.
1010XL is presented by Farrah & Farrah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Now more Jaguars today on 1010XL.
All right, the latest spot track, you know, I'm not a capologist, Tony, but I play one on the radio quite often. They say it's going to be like $2.5 million cap savings. I can't figure it. Roughly, the Jags have about $50 million is the bottom line in salary cap space, and they also now have a known gaping hole at center. Look, the teams that are going to go after Drew Dahlman, for instance, we're probably going to go after him anyway, but now Drew Dahlman knows what your level of desperation is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, the more I think about this, Mitch Morse, who's going to, according to Mike Garofalo of NFL Network, NFL.com, going to get to keep the $800,000 prorated portion of his signing bonus. Can't you just keep the announcement quiet for a week until after the first wave of free agency goes by? I don't know. It seems like that's worth $800,000 to me. You know, keep your mouth shut. You keep the $800,000. Otherwise, we're going to come after the $800,000, which is well within the team's right to do. In fact, I don't understand. Like, that's his business to me. Like, why do you give a guy an $800,000 parting gift? I'm not sure. I'm not talking to my GM because I'm hopeful to get exactly that tone one day. Yeah. When I leave 1010XL.
Well, he was here for a whole year, and for the first time in his career, wasn't on a playoff team. Like, he went to the playoffs every other year of his career except the last one here.
Let's say good morning to Gus Logue. Duval rundown here on 1010XL, and of course, Big Cat Country. Gus, circumstances are overtaking our previously well-plotted out discussion points with you this morning. And we can get to it. We're going to talk about the trade back landscape with the 5th pick in the draft. But let's talk about the most pressing, immediate news coming out. Mitch Morse, who, look, we knew he wasn't going to be here for the long term, and that center was going to be a spot that you had to address, but maybe you thought you had another year. Maybe you thought you could draft a developmental guy, bring him along slowly. What does this do now in terms of putting center near the top of the Jaguars' wish list?
Yeah, well, I think offensive and defensive lines were like kind of 1A, 1B for the top needs going into the offseason, and now it's just immediately, for sure, offensive line because you got to replace Morse at center, and then Brandon Sheriff is hitting free agency. He's the right guard. So you need 2 new starters. Obviously, free agency is going to be the first place you look. You mentioned Drew Dahlman from the Falcons. I think he's kind of similar to the guard he plays next to, Chris Lindstrom, who gets a lot of recognition as one of the best guards in the league. But really, he's a great, both of them great run blockers, not as good at pass protection. And so James Gladstone's comments from last week at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis stand out to me because he was talked about, quote-unquote, setting the dish up front for the quarterbacks and how it's so much better for quarterbacks to be able to step into their throws with confidence as opposed to like the pocket getting pushed into them. And so Drew Dahlman, I'm not sure if he's a great fit because he's a better run blocker than a pass blocker. Other than that, the only other like veteran center that would be on the free agent market is probably Ryan Kelly from the Colts. but he's kind of similar to like the Mitch Morse scenario where he's nearing the end of his career.
Right.
I believe he's 35 years old. He's definitely in his 30s. And so I don't know if the Jaguars would be interested in just like replacing Morse with another guy who's nearing the end of his career. I think that their plan originally, or what I assumed, was that they were going to draft a guy to eventually take over for Morse. So now I think their plan is going to be to draft a guy to immediately take over for Morse.
Right. Like you could have gone that route with, let's say, Gray Zabel. A lot of people think is going to move inside, and who knows exactly where he's going to go. Let's say you could have got him with the 36th pick. Maybe started him for a year as guard with the idea of moving him towards center eventually. The problem, I don't want two guys in their first year in the National Football League playing next to each other on the offensive line, right? And especially because it's not like the Jags don't have other needs to fill. They're going to have to go out and find a couple of starters in free agency at some spots or other. Do you think wide receiver is likely to be one? Where do you think this leaves the Jags at the receiver position with the announcement yesterday that Christian Kirk will be released?
I definitely think they need to add to the room. I think Parker Washington is a solid receiver, a good playmaker, but I just don't think he's a great fit in Liam Cohen's offense. I think he's kind of the slot receiver of yesterday, where he's like the prototypical cliche Wes Welker, Julian Edelman type, where they're best in spread out offenses, and then they can work over the middle of the field. But in Cohen's offense, he wants guys like a Chris Godwin or a Cooper Kupp who can not just run routes from the slot, but also be kind of a pseudo tight end and help chip against defensive ends, double team against defensive ends in the run, crowd across the formation, and do slice blocks in that regard, do jet sweeps. You have to be really versatile as a slot, but really just as a receiver in Cohen's offense. And again, I think that Parker is a solid player, but I think he's more of a niche player, and I think they're going to just be valuing versatility inside and outside, whether it's free agency or the draft.
Given the need versus fit that you talked about a moment ago with Dahlman, right? And it's unclear exactly what it would look like for him as the center for the Jaguars, but he's clearly the best available option in the free agent market at now what is a clear area of need in a draft where there's not a whole lot of them available. They've let go of Christian Kirk. So I think a lot of people thought yesterday when that news came out, we're all waiting to see what's plan B, right, at the position, and what do they pivot to at that spot. I thought at the time probably the first call they would make in free agency when the Kirk thing went down will be Godwin. Right, when they get the opportunity to, given now the opening at center, who is the first guy they call, you think, on Monday when the tampering window is officially allowed to be opened?
I think it probably is Drew Dahlman, even if he wouldn't be a great fit. He's really like the best and only notable center available on the market. And so you at least reach out to his representatives and see what kind of deal and for how long he's looking for. And then you kind of go from there. I think to what you said, Mike, it definitely makes sense to kind of try to solve the position in multiple ways through the draft and free agency. And so I think in free agency, you'd want to try to get two guys at center and right guard who potentially could start if like a rookie doesn't work out and isn't as competitive as you think in his rookie year to push for the starting spot. But I think that the same way that a lot of people are talking about how teams at the top of the draft are going to solve their quarterback problem by potentially signing a bridge quarterback and still drafting a quarterback, I think that's how Jacksonville needs to go about a lot of their positions, not just offensive line, but also receiver, cornerback, maybe safety. Like sign a guy, but also draft a guy.
Well, it depends, though. If you've signed Dahlman, though, you're going to have to invest. He's probably going to get something among the top three centers in the league. Creed Humphrey is so far ahead of the rest of the field that I don't think he's going to surpass him this offseason. There's such a gap between him and number two. But I've seen projections that make him the second highest paid center in the league. So if you do that, I mean, aren't you just committing to him for the foreseeable future as he's got to be your guy?
That's definitely true. For the offensive line, it is pretty fluid, I think. There's definitely some guys that are only centers or only tackles or even only guards. But typically, interior offensive linemen can shift around a little bit. And so maybe you'd be able to not necessarily shift Dahlman, but shift like a rookie that you draft to either be a potential long-term center or even slot in at a guard spot in the near future. But yeah, with Dahlman, like he would be the starter, and you're probably not going to try to allocate too much more resources to that position. But I will say that like I think that the undervalued positions are where you should dictate resources in free agency. Whenever there's a good wide receiver or edge rusher that's available, they're just objectively going to be overpaid. But like when you look at what the Eagles did last year, they signed running back Saquon Barkley, linebacker Zach Bond, right guard Mekhi Becton, safety CJ Gardner-Johnson. they shored up a lot of their holes at lower valued positions because it didn't take as much money.
And then they went and broke the bank on 2 of those 4 in this last few days alone. But
That's true.
I mean, look, when you win the Super Bowl, all you're trying to do is stay at the top level. I don't blame them a bit for what they're doing.
And given the needs they have, especially with the ones that have opened up here in the last day for the football team, we'll see what they do for free agency. But as we've discussed, the options specifically at center are thin, right? Like it's Dolman or a guy who might retire when you sign him, right? Like that's pretty much the options they have at that particular position. They're not drafting one at 5, right? They're not drafting someone to play center at 5 in the NFL draft. So for this football team, we'll see what they do in free agency next week. But as you're looking at it right now, what do you think the ideal scenario at 5 is for the Jaguars?
I would say, I mean, maybe trading back. We can talk about that a little bit. Obviously, that depends on how the quarterback market shakes out and like what the quarterback needy teams are going to be when April does come around. So trading back, as James Gladstone said last week, he always wants more at-bats at the plate, always wants more draft capital, even though the Jaguars do lead the league in number of draft picks over the next 2 seasons. So ideally trade back, but then I think just offensive linemen, whether it's Will Campbell of LSU or Armand Membu out of Missouri, who's been a really strong riser throughout the draft process. I think you just don't worry too much about like, oh, we already have Anton Harrison and Walker Little. You just need to shore up that offensive line as any way that you can. And I think that between Tony Baselli being a former offensive lineman and now being the EVP of football operations, and then Gladstone and Cohen's comments about wanting to shore up that position, I think that they're going to make a statement pick and say, yeah, we're addressing the offensive line here.
Even more so than Mason Graham on the defensive line.
I think so. I'm personally a little bit shied away from Mason Graham as a top 5 prospect. I think he's maybe more of a sub-package pass rusher. I'm a little bit skeptical about him being like a full-down player. It does kind of depend a little bit on the scheme that he's drafted into. I think that Anthony Campanile's scheme, assuming he runs something similar to Jeff Hafley last year, as opposed to Vic Fangio, which has some history or experience in the Vic Fangio tree too. But Hafley's tree last year was a lot more penetrating fronts, getting upfield. It would suit Mason Graham a lot better. But I think that for defensive tackle, on one hand, there's not a lot of defensive tackles that give you the pass rush upside that Mason Graham does. But I also think that offensive line would just be a more valuable selection.
And defensive tackle is so deep, man. I mean, really, especially the run stuffing type. And I want to see what Mason Smith can turn into. I mean, you've spent a high pick. He started to come on towards the end of the season. I'm not ready to completely write him off and just say he's the guy you're going to skip right over necessarily. Again, if they decide to go Mason Graham, I think you got to give the new brain trust the benefit of the doubt, because it is the new brain trust, and they don't have any bad history here in Jacksonville. When it comes to the veteran free agent market, let's say Godwin re-signs with the Bucs in the next couple of days, which is possible. A lot of people are like, oh, we're just going to go get Cooper Kupp. I mean, Cooper Kupp's a more injured player than Christian Kirk is. I don't understand like the shift from one to the other. Christian Kirk has had a better yards per catch average than him in recent years. I mean, Kupp's a good player, but to me, he would have to come at a pretty significant discount if I'm certainly not giving any draft capital to trade for him on the contract he's on. Do you think they make a play at a veteran receiver, and is Kupp one of those guys that would be in the mix for you?
Yeah, I think Kupp and Godwin are definitely going to be at the top of their list. I think they'll probably try to go for Godwin first. I mean, I think every day that he hasn't signed a new deal with the Bucs is a good thing, because technically he can sign an extension at any point. So it seems like he is going to hit free agency, and at least maybe it's just kind of a negotiating tactic, and he's going to try to get the Jaguars or another team to offer him one deal and then have the Bucs offer $1 more in return to Tampa Bay. But I do expect them to set their sights on Chris Godwin, and assuming Chris Godwin returns to Tampa Bay, then set their sights on Cooper Kupp, which, as you're saying, I think that they would talk about a trade, but more realistically would be Kupp just being straight out released and then trying to work out a deal in free agency. But there's obviously a lot of previous connections and familiarity between both Liam Cohen and James Gladstone and Kupp. And then it goes back to like the versatility thing that I was talking about earlier with Parker Washington. Even if Godwin and Kupp and Christian Kirk have all been relatively as productive as each other, Godwin and Kupp provide so much more versatility in terms of what they can do on the field And so I think those will be the first two names, especially as kind of unquestioned starters. But in terms of kind of like adding depth to the position, I think Darius Slayton from the Giants and Tutu Atwell from the Rams are two names to keep an eye on to just add some perimeter speed.
Yeah, Tutu's got the connections. I think Slayton's going to have a big market, honestly. And probably people are going to be surprised for what he signs for. Godwin, definitely interested in. Saw what he can do in a Liam Cohen offense last year. He was right there with Jamar Chase as the most productive 2 wide receivers in the league when he got hurt.
Yep.
I'm not so much on the Cup train. I just don't know what he has left, honestly. I don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy. He hasn't done it for 3 years in a row.
I will say, I think that going back to last week again, James Gladstone, the biggest buzzword was intangibles, and he's looking for players that are intangibly rich. And so I think that on one hand, Kupp fits the scheme and what Liam Cohen wants to do on the field, but I think he also fits to a T what they're going to be looking for in terms of adding the quality of not just player, but person, and trying to build up the new ecosystem in Jacksonville.
All right. Who's the first big name free agent that the Jags actually procure?
I don't have a big name.
Or starter level.
Yes. So a starter level that I'm really interested in. I think the defensive tackle market is interesting. As you were saying, even if you think that Mason Smith is going to be an all-pro one day, like just...
I did not say that. I did not use those words.
Even if you think that, like, just his presence alone on the roster doesn't mean you should not add to that room. So I think they should definitely, and going back to what I said about signing undervalued positions, they could definitely sign some defensive tackles. I think that Grady Jarrett is someone that is a potential cut candidate. John Allen from the Commanders, but a lesser-known name who's already a free agent is B.J. Hill from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's unlikely to re-sign since the Bengals are obviously more worried about the money that they're spending on offense. But B.J. Hill is almost like Roy Robertson Harris, he reminds me of, because he's just got a towering frame even compared to other NFL linemen. He's definitely
Roy,
a two-gapper. He's
free.
Yeah, he is free. That's true. But no, I think B.J. Hill is just like the steady veteran presence that can come in, play 700 snaps, and just be a great role player for you.
All right, we will look for a maybe an off-schedule defensive tackle in the eyes of Gus Logue. Duval Rundown. When does Duval Rundown drop on a weekly? Give us the schedule, or is it just kind of whenever you decide to do an episode?
9:04 a.m. Eastern each weekday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I did a show with Mia this morning. Tomorrow I'll have Hacker on. So yeah, it's just pretty much a 30-minute YouTube show, also available in podcast form.
All right, there you go. And check out Gus's work over at Big Cat Country as well. Gus Logue, appreciate the time, and we're all ready to get to free agency and get some actual players instead of speculation going here.
I might retire ahead of then.
Well, you might. I mean, you wouldn't be the first one today to do that. All right, thank you, Gus.
We're asking you to stick around until we figure things out.
Well, right. Just at least don't announce it until we get your replacement signed. Come on, Mitch. Just wait a week. All right, Mitch Morse decided to retire, so the Jags need a center. Christian Kirk going to be released, so the Jags probably need to add to the wide receiver room as well. We'll continue to discuss in hour number 2, about 20 minutes away from Pete Prisco joining the program. This is Jaguars Today on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
Jaguars Today from the Renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors Studios of 1010XL. Put some wedge in your next chassis adjustment.
He said he was a little bit free.
This Sunday at Phoenix, NASCAR is tuned up by Maxie's Mechanics on your NASCAR station. 1010XL.
Okay, for this Cannons of Jacksonville commercial, we need an idea to really come out with a bang.
Like having a guy shot out of a cannon.
Nah, too messy. In fact, Cannons is known for all your towing needs.
So like my car won't start.
No. Towing products. Cannons does custom welding fabrication and installation of trailer hitches, goosenecks, tow bars, truck racks.
So you might say Cannons is my best shot at finding that inventory in stock?
Boom. You said it.
Visit cannonsofjacks.com.
Hi, I'm Carly Granick.
And I'm Caroline Edwards, a student at Norfolk School of Special Education.
At NFSSC, we foster each student's unique abilities to reveal their highest potential. Just 5 days left until the players.
You're locked into Jaguars Today Thursday with Cannons of Jacksonville.
This is the Mangler. Years of playing football coupled with lifestyle left my feet mangled with neuropathy. I was experiencing burning, tingling, and numbness. I spoke with 2 foot specialists and they told me there was no cure. They were wrong. I found Dr. Nate Riddle in Ponte Vedra. After utilizing his neuropathy treatment for only 2 weeks, I noticed a difference in my feet. I was regaining my feeling and balance. If you want relief from nerve pain, call Dr. Nate for a free consultation at Riddle Wellness, 904-395-5598.
Hey folks, Hicken here for Zero Res. You're going to want to beat the spring cleaning rush and call our cleaning heroes at Zero Res. This month, get one room Zero Resified starting at $53. Hey, and take $100 off your air duct cleaning. Don't forget about your air ducts. Your air ducts sort of like the lungs of your home. If they're dirty, your indoor air quality suffers. Visit ZeroResJacksonville.com. Tell them Dan or 1010XL sent you. Spell it forwards or backwards. Zero Res. It's the right way to clean.
Zero Res. Bueller. Stay cooler with Bueller.
Hey, buddy, you look worried.
Worried? I'm apoplectic!
You're what now?
I'm freaking out, Jason. Stupid water heater crapped out, so I haven't showered since Thursday. I start smelling a little funky, blow my big corporate job interview tomorrow. I'll end up settling for some dead-end career selling spatulas on the internet.
Dude, stay cool.
There's nothing cool about a cold shower, Jason. I mean, I know how that sounds, but...
Bueller Air and Plumbing can get a new water heater installed today. The day you call. You could be smelling fresh again by dinner time.
Wait, you can do that?
Put on these sunglasses.
Whoa.
Is that cooler?
Oh, yeah.
Well, life moves pretty fast. If you spend much more time smelling like this, you could miss it.
Stay cooler with Bueller.
Visit BuellerAir.com.
If you never saw Zeppelin live, now you can know what it's like. And if you did, relive the magic of Led Zeppelin Live. Get the Let Out is back at Florida Theater, March 12th. Get the Let Out. Find out what it felt like to see Zeppelin live. Get tickets now at floridatheater.com.
The flagship station of the Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach. One of the best things about being on the First Coast is standing at the center of the golf world.
Yes, it is.
Brunch with a tour.
Tour news, tips, and inside info. Brought to you by
Clearwater Irrigation. 8:30 Tuesday morning on 1010XL.
When you're experiencing sudden, unexpected dental pain, the last thing you want to hear is that your dentist can't see you until next week. That's why I'm so glad I found Harbor Dental Care. Whenever I call, they always find a way to see me within 24 hours, and they can usually fix whatever's wrong the same day. Plus, they have locations throughout Jacksonville, so no matter what side of town I'm on, I can always count on the same great care. If you want to find a dentist who believes in treating people right, learn more at harbordental.care. That's HARBOUR dental.care.
It's game time for your business, and Advanced Business Solutions has the winning play. With Xerox copiers, you'll never miss a deadline. Fast, reliable, and built for high performance, Xerox copiers keep your team ahead of the competition. From printing to scanning, Xerox brings the MVPs of efficiency to your office. Ready to make the winning move? Hire the champions at Advanced Business Solutions. Veteran owned.
Printers, copiers, and IT management. Advanced Business Solutions.
Did you know your pup could take 30,000 to 60,000 steps a day at Dogtopia of Jacksonville Beach Boulevard? That's a whole lot of tail wagging fun with their best furry friends. At Dogtopia, they turn playtime into exercise, learning, and socialization in their off-leash, open play environment. Dogs build confidence, reduce anxiety, and stay happy and healthy, all while having the time of their lives. Visit Dogtopia of Jacksonville Beach Boulevard today.
Don't miss the Players' Championship, March 11th through 16th at TPC Sawgrass. This can't-miss event features a variety of activities for every fan to enjoy, from delicious bites to the Sawgrass Splash. There are endless fan enhancements that will make for a memorable experience. Plus, watch the top PGA Tour players, including back-to-back champion Scottie Scheffler, take on the iconic stadium course featuring the famous Island Green. Tickets available at theplayers.com.
This is Molly McDonald with your 1010XL Southeast Orthopedic Specialist Local Sports Update, brought to you by Riddle Wellness. For the first time in program history, the Florida Gators have defeated 2 top 10 teams on the road this season. With only 2 games left in the regular season, the Road Warriors went to Tuscaloosa to take care of business against the top-ranked Crimson Tide 99-94. Head coach Todd Golden spoke on his team post-game.
Yeah, I think it's the strength of our team. You know, we have a very mature team, workman-like approach. We're very consistent. For whatever reason, I feel like we really hone in and do a great job of preparing on the road and making sure we come in with a great mentality. And to win a game like this, like Walt said, you're going to have to deal with some highs and lows, and you can't allow your emotions to affect you negatively. And I thought we did a great job of doing that. You know, I think we're one of the best teams in America. To do that, you have to go on the road and beat good teams. We did that with Auburn. We did that again tonight with Alabama.
It's 59 degrees at 11 o'clock. Time in temp brought to you by Bueller Air and Plumbing. Stay cooler with Bueller.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Everything you need to know about the Jags. Jaguars today on 1010XL.
All right, busy 24-plus hours for your Jacksonville Jaguars. Christian Kirk will be released, and Mitch Morse this morning, the Jags center, announcing his retirement. A lot of speculation, Tony, because they didn't say anything about Evan Ingram. Does that mean he is safe? I don't think they necessarily make the announcement exactly the same time. You know, you almost want to let the guy have his moment. Like, all right, Christian Kirk's been a good player, held in high regard by his teammates and the fan base and all that. I don't know, but we talked about it Monday. I think we disagreed with John Shipley. I think he thought that Evan Ingram was more likely to be gone. I felt like he was more likely to stay just because the bigger cap savings was with Kirk, the $24 million cap hit. Either way, we don't know if this is the end for the Jaguars' pre-free agency moves or not, but they've certainly got a couple of holes now to fill. And I was just looking over at PFF at their center rankings for this past year. Top center in the league was Eric McCoy with a grade of 94.2 overall. Creed Humphrey, who's the highest paid center in the league for Kansas City, came in second with a 92.4 grade. Frank Ragnow on the highly heralded Detroit line had an overall grade of 86.1. Tyler Linderbaum of the Ravens next at 79.9. And then in fifth place at 78.8 was Drew Dahlman of the Falcons. And this is what they said as we were just talking about him. He's the best center on the free agency market. Like Eric McCoy, Dahlman missed the middle portion of the season after suffering an injury in week 3. While he wasn't as dominant as McCoy, he still showed he was among the game's top centers. His calling card has been run blocking. And while he didn't match his 90 PFF run blocking grade from 2023, his 79.8 mark still got the job done. Pass blocking was an issue coming into the year. He had never garnered a season-long grade above 60, but he showed a lot of improvement last year, posting a career-high 66.6 PFF pass blocking grade while allowing only 10 pressures on 295 pass blocking snaps. So, look, again, the perfect players generally aren't available in free agency.
No.
It's not supposed to be a deep center class in the NFL draft. And put it this way, I only had the top 10 listed right here. Mitch Morse didn't make that top 10.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a significant upgrade. Ryan Kelly, by the way, who is probably, as Gus Logue mentioned, older guy, might retire anyway. But look, if they want to stopgap it for a year with Ryan Kelly and he's willing to do it, I'm okay with that. They're going to stopgap for a year with Mitch Morse, who's in the last year of a 2-year deal.
Right.
So,
and it doesn't change whatever your plan is in the draft of the position at all.
No, it wouldn't change that, right? You still would have to have a succession plan in place, but that presence gives you the buffer that you don't have to throw that guy to the wolves right away and have a rookie starting center, rookie starting guard, potentially coming right out of the gates.
Yeah, it would essentially be like you had Mitch Morse here for that last year.
Yes, if you had Ryan Kelly.
Right, like
exactly.
If Kelly was the guy that they brought in, and that's okay. I can understand, feeling like, well, they could get a long-term answer. Yeah, which is why I would expect likely Dahlman's going to be one of the first calls they make.
If not the first.
Right? Like
sure.
when free agency opens next week. But
I would think they already know what his market is. They know what he's looking for.
Yeah.
And whether they're willing to pay it or not.
Yeah. As I talked about in Crosstalk, everyone was at the Combine last week. They're not going to be surprised at the numbers for any of these guys, right? When they open up on Monday, it's just, are you willing to pony up on whatever the number is going to be on Dahlman? Are you willing to make him the second highest paid center in the league?
I would be.
Right. I would be too. And we'll see if the Jaguars feel the same way about it, or if they go, like as we're talking about here, I'd be okay if they go the Kelly route and say we're going to draft somebody that's the long-term answer at the spot. Okay.
I want to at least knock on the Dolman door, and let's say even if you sign him to a deal that averages $15 million a year, which would put him roughly about the second highest paid center in the league.
Yes.
Okay. That doesn't mean his cap hit is $15 million necessarily.
No.
If you want to manage it, you can make that cap hit $5 million. There are all kinds of ways to do it by designating bigger portions of his contract as signing bonus. That way you can split it up over the length of the deal, dummy years on the back end, all kinds of things you can do to lower the cap hit. But going to be interesting to see if they do focus in on him. They know if they're going to do that or not. I doubt Mitch Morse caught him by surprise. I'm sure they had talked to Mitch Morse. What are you thinking? You still want to play? Blah, blah, blah. And so they probably had an inkling that this was coming, particularly when you see a report that he's going to be able to keep that prorated portion of the signing bonus that they'd have the right to go after, because that's not a decision they would have made in the 15 minutes or the 5 minutes, really, between the announcement that he was going and the post that indicated that that was the case. This has already been settled between he and the team. Why don't we go around and take a look at what's happening elsewhere in the National Football League?
Now, gems around the NFL. Brought to you by Beach's Jewelry and Pawn in Jax Beach.
Houston is re-signing running back Dare Agumbawale to a one-year, $2 million deal. The Texans also restructured the contract of wide receiver Nico Collins to save $9.8 million on their cap this year. Dallas has restructured with Dak Prescott to save a little over $36 million in cap space. Cleveland has restructured with quarterback Deshaun Watson, creating $35.8 million in cap space this year for the team. Seattle wide receiver DK Metcalf has requested to be traded, and the team has agreed to explore their options and a potential deal for him. Seattle reportedly early on asking for a first and third. We'll see what that winds up being. Seattle also released wide receiver Tyler Lockett yesterday. The Las Vegas Raiders and edge rusher Max Crosby have agreed to a 3-year, $106.5 million extension with $91.5 million guaranteed, which will currently make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. The Raiders are also signing offensive lineman Alex Kappa to a 2-year, $11 million deal. Philadelphia linebacker Zach Bond have agreed to a 3-year, $51 million deal with $34 million guaranteed, a deal that makes him the fourth highest paid linebacker in the league. The Los Angeles Chargers are releasing edge rusher Joey Bosa, and Cincinnati defensive end Sam Hubbard has announced his retirement.
It wasn't one of the Raiders' assistant coaches, Coach Kappa, I think it was the connection there. Yeah, because he didn't have a great year the metrics. Now, I'm not going to tell you which guards had great years for the most part, right? But at least according to the advanced metrics, he did not have a great season. Talking about Alex Kappa, who signed there. Could the Jags have gone after him? Maybe they just weren't interested in him, right? But there is that if you've coached him before and you think, okay, maybe he didn't have a great year, but I know what he's capable of, what I can get out of this guy. Either way, it's a lot of interior offensive line movement in the last couple of days. Joe Thuney goes for a future 4th-round pick, which I don't think it's a terrible investment for the Chicago Bears. The question is, how long will you have him there in Chicago? But he's definitely going to improve that offensive line. He's one of the best pass-blocking interior offensive linemen in the National Football League. He's just a little bit older in the tooth. I think the Jags feel like, in terms of guard, there's a wealth of guards in this draft. Center's a different story, a little bit trickier to fill. So we'll talk with Pete Prisco about that coming up here in just a few minutes, as he is going to join us from CBS Sports. And, of course, on that Jaguar beat for a long, long time. You know Pete quite well around these parts. And we'll discuss all the latest Jaguars news and the hot stuff from around the NFL. That's straight ahead. You're listening to Jaguars Today. Mike Dempsey, Tony Smith, and Dylan Denmark on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. Hey, folks, Mike Dempsey here for Dandy Foods. Normally, this time I'm telling you about Dandy sandwiches, how delicious they are. You ought to know that by now. Look, if you've lived in Jacksonville for any period of time, you can't escape Dandy. They're in every gate station. Absolutely delicious. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack time, anytime. But this week, Danny would like to tell you about a great little golf tournament going on right here, right now on the First Coast, that you have the opportunity to see LPGA Tour stars of tomorrow competing at the Atlantic Beach Country Club March 6th through the 8th with the Epson Tours Atlantic Beach Classic. It's presented by Access Golf It's the second stop on the pathway to the top 15 ladies getting LPGA Tour cards at the end of the season. So get out there, enjoy some golf, support the ladies of tomorrow. The IQ Fiber Linkside Lounge, the best value going. You get an all-inclusive ticket with food, beer, wine, and spirits for only $75. So visit AtlanticBeachClassic.com. Enter promo code IQ for this special rate. And when you're hungry, do what I do. Go out and make yours a dandy. Do it today.
Jaguars today for the renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors Studios. Tall, dark, handsome, athletic ladies man, sharp dresser.
That must be what we're looking for.
Yeah, none of that.
Can you just back up a little bit?
Ryan the Hacker Green.
So that will be what you call bluffing.
Weeknights on Jack Sports Radio, 1010XL.
Jacksonville runs on dreams, and Haymaker Coffee is a local brand fueling the next generation. Keep each day strong with a Haymaker. Fuel for the morning hustle, the late night, and every step of the way. Bold flavors for the bold city. Online at haymakercoffeeco.com.
This is the sound of turning small bets into legendary wins. Only on the Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app. The sound of parlays. The sound of paydays. The sound of watching the game will never be the same. Hard Rock Bet has already paid out millions and millions in parlays to people across Florida. Download Hard Rock Bet now, and if your first bet doesn't win, get up to $100 back as a bonus bet. Offered by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Must be 21 plus and physically present in Florida to play. Terms and conditions apply. Concerned about gambling? Please call 1-888-ADMIT-IT.
Mia O'Brien here for Pro Jax Roofing. Here at the Superstation, we talk a lot about pros. Pro football, pro baseball, pro basketball, pro sports. But if you want a true pro when it comes to your roof, you should call Mike with Pro Jax Roofing. Mike's been in the roofing biz for well over 25 years, and when you call, you don't get a recording, you get Mike himself. Find Mike's cell on ProJaxRoofingFL.com. That's ProJaxRoofingFL.com. Don't rely on the third string option. Call in the starter with Mike at Pro Jax Roofing.
Jaguars Today Thursday is hitched to Cannons of Jacksonville for all your towing needs.
Florida homeowners, storms don't wait, so why should you? Universal Roof and Contract protects your home and your wallet. Invest in a stronger roof and save big. Spend $6,000 and get up to $600 off. $15,000 up to $2,000 off. $20,000 up to $3,000 off. This deal ends March 31st. Call 855-ROOF-HELP for your free inspection. Universal Roof and Contracting. Protecting your home, building your trust. License number CCC 057165, CBC 1258484.
Mark Watson with Hardball Creative, letting you know that Hardball now offers web stores, so your employees can order their own branded gear, and you have more time for Wordle. Check it out at hardballcreative.com.
Hardball Creative. Hardball does it all.
Start your Saturday with a whiff of the great outdoors.
Captain Kevin Favor here with Captain Kirk and Jeff Lagerman, and we bring you the fresh air of the great outdoors.
On the Nimnit Outdoors Show, presented by Duck Rooter Plumbing, Septic and Air Conditioning on 1010XL.
The restaurant of the day is the Great Greek Mediterranean Grill. Get a Greek Feast family combo meal tray with chicken skewers, gyro meat, dolmades, and more. Feed 4 to 6 people for just $49.95. Feed 8 to 10 for just $99.95. The Great Greek Mediterranean Grill.
Transform your bathroom with stunning shower glass from Sky Glass Solutions in Jacksonville Beach. For a free quote, call 904-608-5151 or visit skyglasssolutions.com.
AA Automotive helps keep your vehicle in dependable and safe condition. Call Sam, Harry, or Joe, and they'll check your brakes, tires, fluids, electric, and motor, so your ride runs smooth on the road. That's AA Automotive on Richard Street.
If someone you love needs a pick-me-up, then it's time to get serious about it. And send them a Kuhn floral arrangement. ET here with 1010XL. You'll be assured of a quality delivery, that's for sure. Log on and order online at kuhnflowers.com.
Need or want cash? Beach's Jewelry and Pawn has cash available. Ready to buy guitars, surfboards, jewelry, firearms, tools, and especially gold. They need it all, selling or pawning. Get cash on the spot at Beach's Jewelry and Pawn in Jacksonville Beach.
Your hole-in-one for men's health is Ackerman Urology. With offices in Mandarin, Middleburg, World Golf Village, and the beaches, Ackerman will get you on par for any prostate conditions and sexual vitality. Visit AckermanUrology.com.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Jaguars Today on 1010XL.
All right, we got the man, the myth, the legend in his own mind from CBS Sports. Their senior NFL writer, Mr. Pete Prisco, joins us this morning. Good morning, Peter. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's been a busy 24 hours on the Jaguar front, so we got a lot to talk about. Free agency coming up. We'll get to Christian Kirk, Pete, but Mitch Morse announcing within the last hour that he is going to retire, ends up only playing 1 year here in Jacksonville. Where does that move center in terms of the immediate needs of the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Well, I think center was a need anyways. He didn't play very well down the stretch, and there was the rumblings during the season that it might be his last year. And in fact, some people in Buffalo were a little surprised that he even decided to play last year because he had those concussions back in the day with the Bills. So it was a major need for the Jaguars, even if he had been on the roster. But this makes it even more so of a pressing need, and they have to address it. The problem is, in free agency, if you look at the center position, Drew Dolman plays in just zone-heavy scheme, and I'm not sure he's going to fit with what they want to do. Ryan Kelly's coming off injuries and has contemplated retirement, so you're kind of going back to what you were a year ago. So I think when you look at it on the surface, it's probably going to be one of those moves they're going to have to make in through the draft, and they're going to have to find a guy that can play center in the draft.
Man, but, they might have to find a guy who could play right guard in the draft as well, Pete. How comfortable would you be, particularly in a year that's not supposed to be great for centers in the NFL draft, to maybe have a rookie starting at each of those positions?
Well, I think, Mike, you can get a right guard in free agency. I think that's doable. There are guys. Now, there are some with questions, don't get me wrong. Guys coming off injury, guy like, Will Fries, he'll be one, the right guard from the Colts. James Daniels, who's coming off an injury with the Steelers, good player when he's out in the field. I think they can address guard in free agency. I think the problem is addressing center in free agency. And so you look at the draft, and you're right, it's not a great draft for centers. I mean, just doing some of the work on some of these guys, you got the kid at Texas, good player, not a great player. You have Wilson, the center from Georgia, good player, not a great player. But again, you go back and you look at some of the history of the center position, you get guys in the second and third round that turn out to be pretty good players. So I think they can get a guy in the draft and make him a guy, particularly if you have veterans around him. And again, it's not depending on who they sign at right guard, they do need to get somebody to play right guard.
Pete, I don't think the team deciding to move on from Christian Kirk is a big surprise, in anyone's eyes. But what should the Jaguars' plan at wide receiver this offseason be from here?
No, it's not a surprise. And I would imagine, and I don't know this, but I would imagine they had gone to him and said, hey, look, if you do take this cut, maybe we'll give you some incentives in it, then maybe we'll do something with you. But, look, he moved on. Now you got to figure out what you're going to do. They have problems at wide receiver. They don't have guys right now other than Brian Thomas Jr., who are, you would sit there and say they're, big-time playmakers or guys you can count on to be starters. Gabe Davis is an interesting one. And, again, I said this over the course of the last couple months. Going back and watching him when he was in Buffalo early in his career, he looked like a different guy. And last year he was hurt all year. Never said anything, then finally he was out for a while. But he came into camp. I think he was hurt when he came into camp, was overweight, didn't look like the same player. So it'll be interesting to see. He's clearly on the roster. It'll be interesting to see what kind of shape he gets into. But there are guys on the market. I mean, if you're looking to address that in free agency, there are guys. A guy like Slayton from the Giants can run. He's not a great player. You're not going to have to pay him a boatload of money, but I think that's a possibility. And then you draft. People say, well, the number 5 pick, could you take a wide receiver there? If you have conviction on a guy, you could, and depending on what you do in free agency with the offensive and defensive line. So I think it's possible. McMillan is a guy, from Arizona, big physical player. You could pair him with Brian Thomas and maybe get him early in the first round, maybe even trade down from 5 and add some picks and do that. So I think there are possibilities. I think you can get a guy, whether it be can add one in free agency, maybe even add one in the draft.
Does it bother you, Pete? I know he's not a burner type, right? He's not. Nobody thinks he's a 4.4 guy. I'm talking about Ted McMillan here. But announced that he's not running either at the combine or his pro day. He's not going to run a 40. Is that a red flag, or do you just say, well, I'll watch the film and decide whether or not this guy is worthy of a top 10 pick?
It's a red flag. And in talking to people around the league, he made those kind of comments to people in those draft meetings, and it kind of turned him off. He went in there and said, the next you're going to see from me is when you call my name on draft day. Well, that can't do that. And I think his agent is kind of talk him off the ledge and make sure he runs, I think, at his pro day.
Okay.
That's what you keep hearing, because you can't go into there when you're that guy. And by the way, the tape doesn't show a burner. That's not what he is. He's a 50-50 guy, a big receiver who can jump, and his 40 time is an issue. And so, yeah, I think he does have to run and have a good pro day workout, even if he says he's not going to do it. I think cooler heads will prevail, and I think his agent will kind of talk him down and make him work out, because that turned off a lot of people when he said that. He not only said it to the media, he said it in meetings as well, and guys want to see him work out.
Is 5 too high to draft a player with the intent of starting them at right guard?
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you – and I'll give you an example. I think the Booker kid at Alabama might be the cleanest offensive lineman in the entire draft. I know his workout wasn't great, but, who cares? He's a big power player, smart, understands the game, comes from a good system, knows all the intricacies of being an offensive lineman in the NFL. Is 5 too high for him? You would look at it and say probably so. Is 5 too high if you're going to say Will Campbell's going to be a right guard? Probably so. But at some point, we got to get past that and say you just got to have 5 good offensive linemen. And so a lot of these teams, they sit there and say, I'm not taking a guard at number 5. So what are you going to do? Are you going to force the pick at another position because you're not going to use it at the best players available because he is a guard? I think you got to get past that sometimes and just get the best football player in that spot. And if Campbell or Booker or whoever, one of those offensive linemen is your best spot and is put him at right guard, then you draft him.
Do you have much thought on Armand Membo, the Missouri offensive lineman who just, tested ridiculously well in Indianapolis? He's got the requisite size, Pete. He's like 6'4.5", 330-ish type guy. Said he's willing to play inside or outside. Is this a guy that was on your radar, and should he be on the Jags' radar?
He's on the radar, but a couple things about him. He's only practiced at guard. He hasn't played there. That's always a worry. Can you make the transition? And by the way, I'm a big believer in there's a lot of starting guards in the NFL that are masquerading as tackles in college, and they can't make the transition to the NFL. Some of the best guards in the NFL have made the transition from being a guy who couldn't play tackle in the NFL to being a great guard. And you go, Sheriff was one of them. I mean, you go back, Yonda was another one back in the day. Zach Martin, another one. That happened. And so I always watch the tape, and I try and look for guys who I think can move inside to play guard. I don't know if he can do it. I don't know if he has the mental toughness, the physical toughness to do it. He's a good athlete. I think there's better options out there. For example, the right tackle at LSU, Emory Jones, to me, looks like a guard. Now, you're not going to take him at 5, but you might be able to take him in round 2, move him inside, make him your starting right guard, and you don't have to worry about it again. So I think there are better options than Membo. I think, people get caught up in that athletic ability. There were moments where you looked at him, he had some, tough tape, some good tape, but some tough tape. I think there are better options for them.
What positions, Pete, would you like to see the team spend their first 4 draft picks on this year?
Well, I think, first off, if they're sitting there at 5 and Graham is sitting there, and I know people hate that pick because he didn't weigh in at 320, didn't, whatever. They have to get another defensive interior player who can push the pocket. I mean, I think Smith is going to be good, provided he is focused. And, reportedly he wasn't, last year. He was overweight at times early in the season and then had the ankle injury. But when he flashed at times late in the season, I think he's the guy who can start on that defensive line. But you got to get somebody next to him. You got to get another guy who can get inside and pressure from the interior. We saw the Eagles and what they did with Milton Williams and Jalen Carter. You got to be able to push inside and rush with 4. If you can rush with 4, you can do a lot of different things on the back end. So I think if Graham were sitting there, I think that's one of their options. The worst case scenario for Jacksonville will be if Graham and Hunter are gone, and then you have a decision to make. And what do you do in that scenario? Do you force Campbell? Campbell, people say, well, what, you're going to pick Campbell. He's going to play guard, and you're picking a guard at 5, and how good is he? And so I think in that scenario, they would probably trade down. But if Graham or Hunter are there, I think they have to take one of those two guys.
All right, what if they're both gone and the other two quarterbacks go? What about Abdul Carter?
Well, that's another one. I would look. I think Abdul Carter might be the best player in the entire draft, and so if he, and I have him. By the way, I have him off as well. I don't think both quarterbacks are going in the top 4, so I think he's gone as well. I think Carter might end up being the number 1 overall pick. I really do. I think that the Titans are going to look at every scenario, including not taking a quarterback, and I think Carter is in play there if they can't work out a trade. So if he were sitting there, I'd race the card up. I think you can never have enough of those guys.
Hopefully, if one of those quarterbacks is there, the Jets want to jump the Raiders for that guy. And, just even a move down to 7, Pete. You pick up, a third-round pick, third and a fifth, something like that, more ammo for this team. I'd be all in favor of it.
They have 19 picks in the next 2 drafts.
They got
already,
10 this year, but they want a bunch. And you know how it is, man.
I'm with you. You can never have enough of them.
You're going to swing and miss on some, no matter how good you are.
Oh, absolutely. And I would do that with 100%. If I was sitting there and somebody wanted to go up and get the quarterback and you were there and I trade down to those spots, I would do that to get extra picks all day. Because, look, this draft isn't loaded with star power at the top, but there's a lot of middle-class guys. And if you need to get some of those guys, you can get those in round 2 and 3.
Pete, we're talking about some of the strengths maybe in this draft class. We've talked about the 2 big needs that have opened up here in the last 24 hours for the Jags. The tampering window opens up on Monday. Who is the first call you would make if you're the Jags when it opens up on Monday?
I would be careful with the free agency class. I'm not going to go crazy, and I think we're going to see a lot of overpays. But I would call on the corners. I would, Ward, Carlton Davis. I think those guys are in play there because they have to get one. It depends on the money. Murphy, if he gets out of the building in Minnesota. But I think Ward last year, if you look at the way Ward played, he didn't play very well last year. But remember, he had so many things going on in his life off the field. I think he had an infant passed away. It was tragic, and so I think he's a player. If you can get him, I think he can step in and start right away for him. So and might not be as costly as some of those other guys. So he's one of those guys I would look at, and then I would look at I'd look at the center position where what it would cost to get a guy like Kelly if you need him for a couple of years if he's willing to play. Not a mega deal, but if he's willing to play and come in, maybe you look at him. And then the guard. I think the guard market is actually pretty good, and there are guys there you can get. And I don't know if they're necessarily going to be, breaking the bank. I mentioned Fries from Indianapolis, coming off an injury. Daniels, Bredesen from Tampa is a guy to keep an eye on. Remember, he went in and started at left guard for Cone last year. So he was on a 1-year deal and did a nice job. Not a great player, but a good serviceable player.
Played
so there
for
are
league minimum too.
Yeah, there are guys on the market you can get. They have to get a couple offensive linemen, by the way, in free agency. They might not have to be the big-time guys, but they have to get 2 or 3 guys in free agency that can step in and be part of the rotation, even if they're not the starters, because the depth of that line is awful. Let's be real. They don't have much depth, and they didn't really do a great job of drafting depth. So they need to find guys that can step in and play.
Should they have been in the Joe Thuney market? He went for a 2026 4th rounder to Chicago.
If he had years left on that deal, I'd probably say yes. But based on where he is now, you're going to have to trade a 4 and then pay him.
Right.
And so, no. I don't think so. Not the way they're being constructed right now. No, I would not do that. Now, the Bears, they did it because, Ben Johnson saw what he'd had in Detroit with the offensive line and feels he's going to replicate that. But I would not have done that if I were them. I think they have better options than doing that.
All right, and final one for you, Pete. Pete Prisco, the GM of the Jaguars, for the moment here. DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, name wide receivers out there. Are you making a play for anyone in particular or looking elsewhere?
DK Metcalf, I wouldn't give up a pick and have to pay him. I'm just not doing that. Unless you want to I'll give you a 4 and then maybe, because it's basically a free agent. He's got a 1 year left in his deal, and he's going to look for $30 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not worth it to me. I don't like that move. So scratch him off. Cooper Kupp can't run at all. I mean, if they want to add somebody who's a reliable route runner in the middle of the field, okay, but he can't run at all. And that's one reason why the Rams are getting rid of him.
Right.
I mean, if you watch the Rams, They play, with a force field at 15 yards. Nobody goes down the field. The running back is slow. They're slow. So you don't want to get slower. So no on him as well. And then who was the third one, Mike? Devontae Adams?
Devontae, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's not going to – I don't think he's going to
I don't think he'd have any interest, right? But.
No, he won't have any interest. And also, he's turns 32, and he still thinks he might be a 1, and he certainly isn't that anymore.
Whatever he is, his birthday's in December. So whatever he is right now, he's going to be that basically throughout the season. But, yeah, I don't think he's going to cast his eyes in the direction of Duval.
You know what I would do? I would do something before I would do any of those veterans. I would do something like Slayton or Brown on the lesser contract.
De'Ami Brown?
Yeah, get some speed on that team. Get somebody who can go. They lack somebody who can go down. I mean, Brian Thomas is great. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be special. But get something else that can help open things up in that passing game, because that's something that really shows up when Jacksonville plays. You got to get faster.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Slayton's market is going to be a little more robust than people think it's going to be, but we shall see.
De'Ami Brown's might be too, by the way. At the end of last season, he was pretty darn good, and teams always look for a guy who can go a little bit.
But I'm with you, like on the Cooper Kupp thing, like he's such a good fit for what they do, and so why are they ready to move on from him, right? It's like Debo, all right? Like I saw somebody wrote, he'd be a great fit in any Shanahan-style offense. Well, what about Shanahan's offense? And they decided, nope, time to go. So those always make me a little
leery. Well, he doesn't run either, and he was over.
I agree.
He had the same thing that the Gabe Davis had. They were chubby. I mean, they were heavy last year. When you get heavy, you can't run. So I'm with you. I think sometimes here's the one thing Jaguar fans have to realize, and I think the regime in there, knowing Tony the way I know him and the other guys, it's not names, it's games. And you got to quit getting so enamored with the names. And, the same thing over and over again. Oh, this guy, he's a name. Go find the deals. That's, I always go back to when Keenan McCardell was an unrestricted free agent. He came in there, he was a nobody. But they saw an ascending player, and they decided, you know what, we'll bring him in. And they brought him in, and he became a big-time player. Those are the guys you got to find. Look for the 26, 27-year-old guy who is an ascending player, and those are the players that Jacksonville needs to sign. Not a veteran, not bringing in veterans who are at the last legs to try and help out for a year, which clearly is what happened with Mitch Morse last year.
Right, but also Gabe Davis, they thought, was that ascending player, right? They'd given more opportunities, could flourish, and, for whatever reasons, maybe he bounces back this year. So you still got to get it right no matter what type of player you target, as I know you know that very well.
Absolutely. But again, you can find some decent players to fill in spots without spending enormous money on a guy, and I think Jacksonville needs to do that in this free agency period, and then draft very well and move from there. But look, in that division, they're not far off. It's not a great division.
Amen. All right, brother. Hey, we appreciate you, Pete. Always love hearing from you. And whenever we get the opportunity, you can catch Pete, I believe, still weekdays or Fridays on the Frangie Show all throughout the offseason as well.
Every Friday.
So that, and you'll have to get a new foil and sparring partner for the Jaguar Radio Network, I guess, going forward.
Well, now I can just rip that guy to shreds.
Well, like you didn't do that anyway. At least now you just won't get the pushback. Pete, all the best, man. Thank you, buddy.
All right, guys, take care.
We appreciate it. At Prisco CBS is where you'll find Pete, of course, out there on social media. Quick break. We'll come back. Some final thoughts on a very busy Jaguar-centric day. This is Jaguars Today on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
Follow the JU Dolphins on 1010XL.
It's Fins Up at the ASUN semifinal. JU at North Alabama. Tonight at 7 on 1010 AM.
Jaguars Today.
For the renewal by Anderson Custom Windows and Doors Studios. At 1010XL.
Call 904-500-COOL. Ideal Conditions.
Ideal Conditions Heating and Air Conditioning is your go-to for all AC repairs and replacements. Just gas your AC. For exceptional service, call 904-500-COOL or visit idealconditionsjax.com to schedule your estimate today.
Call 904-500-COOL.
Honk if you see us. Call for service.
Ideal Conditions.
Idealconditionsjax.com.
Don't miss the Players' Championship, March 11th through 16th at TPC Sawgrass. This can't-miss event features a variety of activities for every fan to enjoy, from delicious delicious bites to the Sawgrass Splash, there are endless fan enhancements that will make for a memorable experience. Plus, watch the top PGA Tour players, including back-to-back champion Scotty Scheffler, take on the iconic stadium course featuring the famous Island Green. Tickets available at theplayers.com.
Spring and summer are coming. Will your pool deck be ready? Don't Slip Deck Coatings of Jacksonville has you covered. Their multi-layered slip-resistant coatings come in a variety of colors, adding safety, durability, and style to your outdoor spaces. Plus, they offer slip-resistant solutions for inside your home, too. Long-lasting, affordable, and built to protect your family. Don't wait. Call today for a free quote, 904-466-1839. And follow Don't Slip Jacks on Facebook and Instagram.
Jaguars Today Thursday is towed by Cannons of Jacksonville.
A lot of companies will tell you they're the best. At Custom Tree Surgeons, they show you every time. Custom Tree Surgeons has built an all-pro team. Every tree service professional has years of experience, continually trained and certified. They know what, when, and how to handle any job. It gets done efficiently and quickly by a team of experts. So for tree trimming, removal, stump grinding, and emergency services, forget any name other than Custom Tree Surgeons. There is no job they can't do better. Go to website CustomTreeSurgeons.com. That's CustomTreeSurgeons.com. And let them show you how the job is supposed to get done.
We're certainly facing interesting economic times. For me, it's comforting to know my money's in good hands with ITP Partners. Jacksonville guys taking care of my Jacksonville money. Experience? Yeah, that's Chris Bryan, Jeff Hartman, Reagan Wright, Dan Abel, Scott Regner, Janice Cobb, and Reed Wingate. They have the expertise and knowledge to take care of your money. For more info, go to ITPPartners.com. ITP Partners, they're my financial partners for life.
Non-compensated client testimonial may not be representative of all client experiences. No guarantee of future performance or success.
Dan Hicken and Jeff Prosser start the week by giving the ball to the best back in Duval.
And off, Fred Taylor.
Monday morning running back with Fred Taylor is fueled by Epstein & Robbins DUI Defense Firm and Monahan Jewelers on 1010XL.
There's a lot on the line in a divorce. Your home, savings, maybe even your kids. So when you find yourself facing divorce and the unexpected directions it can take, you need a partner you can count on. I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. Don't let divorce take more than it has to.
Offices in Jacksonville. Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's attorneys. Lisa Cargis, Florida resident partner. Rick Julius, licensed in Pennsylvania only. Online at CordellCordell.com.
Committed to the mission. At Navy Mutual, we're committed to providing high-quality life insurance to members of the military and their families. Because at Navy Mutual, our highest commitment is to you. Visit NavyMutual.org.
For K-9 Veterans Day, Navy Mutual would like to salute all active and retired K-9s that have served our country. K-9 Veterans Day has been officially designated as a day to honor these unique members of our military. America salutes you.
If you're heading to the AUG or you're already part of the nation's oldest, don't forget to drop into Sunset Grill. For over 30 years, serving up great chowder, seafood, wings, and cold beer. Sunset Grill, somewhere on A1A, St. Augustine Beach.
Daly's Dash is not only your Jaguars game day stop, but a great place to grab a meal any day of the week. To honor the Jags and the fans, we've crafted the Duval Sub. The Duval comes with freshly sliced turkey, ham, melted cheddar, and habanero jack cheese, topped with crisp lettuce, fresh tomatoes, and a double portion of our secret sauce, all served on a fresh roll. Come by your local's Daly's Dash today to get your delicious Duval Sub. Daly's is the official convenience store sponsor of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The First Tee Tour Card is back for 2025 and better than ever, with access to over 15 of North Florida's best courses and new this year, local participating businesses. This card is your ticket to saving hundreds. First Tee North Florida is a local nonprofit who build character in youth participants through the game of golf. This annual fundraiser enables this amazing organization the ability to build game changers. Grab your tour card for just $99 at tourcard.org. for a list of participating partners, benefits, and restrictions.
If you suffer from constant burning, tingling, or numbness in your hands or feet, it could be a serious condition called neuropathy. I'm Dr. Nathan Riddle, DC with Riddle Wellness in Ponte Vedra. Neuropathy is treatable, and we have seen great results by using state-of-the-art, non-invasive therapies to target damaged nerves, reduce symptoms, and improve nerve function. Call 904-395-5598 to schedule your free consultation today and learn how you can live pain-free. Call 904-395-5598.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Now, the cool down from the cool guys at Donovan Air Electric and Plumbing. Fast, reliable, and honest service since '87.
All right, a couple of things here, Tony Smith, on the Jaguar front. One was, didn't Mitch Morse do the Jags a favor by letting him know he's retiring? Yes, but you could have let him know, hey, I'm going to announce my retirement and hold it off a week. It may not matter in the end. I mean,
it's not that big a deal, but it's an angle on the story that's at least interesting.
It doesn't necessarily make another team value Drew Dahlman more. For instance, if the Jags were even in the Drew Dahlman market, but what it may make them do is prioritize that guy and go after him more aggressively right out of the chutes, knowing that a team has such a glaring need at that spot. We'll find out. That was one of the ones that we got in here. Also, let's see. I know you're not talking about it because we might not expect much out of Eric Armstead and how he performed last year, but if he does move back inside, is that going to help? If, basically, how big of a impact would that make? Well, he's not here for the long term either.
No.
Right? And so for the short term, for this year, absolutely. But I look at Eric Armstead as you're going to give us what you give us in 2025, but we got to have solutions on the roster ready to replace you after that. A lot of ways they can go. Pete thinks they're going to sign like 3 offensive linemen in free agency. I don't know if they're going to do that because I do think they want to get some youth in the line. I think now, though, maybe Pete's right. Maybe they'll go for a guard, a more economical player there, and look for the center in the draft. It's just that if you're looking for that center, there are like 2 or 3 players that are felt to be ready to step in and play center in the National Football League. You got to be in position to take one. And you say, well, he's not worth this pick. Well, by the time your next pick rolls around, maybe they're not there. And I just think it's a precarious spot to put yourself in heading into the draft at a position that's not very deep.
Yeah, their depths along both lines of scrimmage is where this whole offseason is going to be about what they do, right? And now you open up the glaring hole at center. It didn't have to be – it's not a big surprise that Mitch Morse would walk away, right? And I'm sure the team has been prepared for this announcement, so it's not like it changes the plan now inside the building, right? But now you have the hole at center. You have the hole at guard. You don't have anything on the roster that you feel comfortable putting into either of those slots, right? So you got to figure out what exactly that's going to look like. You have no idea what Javon Foster is at this point, and it's the last regime's 4th-round pick. They have no loyalty to that guy. If he can play, sure, it'd be great if it works out that way, and it feels like the whole defensive line. We talked about how many bodies they had along the defensive line last year coming out of training camp. Well, it wound up not being worth anything.
Right. They had a lot of bodies, but no standouts.
Right. And those bodies are all still here. I don't know what Jordan Jefferson's going to turn into. Right? Jeremiah Ledbetter's a free agent. We'll see what Eric Armstead's going to be. Mason Smith is a 2nd-round pick, so he's at least going to get a chance, right, with the football team. It's not like they're moving on from that. Devon Hamilton feels like he's at the end of it here in Jacksonville. Miles Cole is nothing as an edge-like guy. Like, he's just not adding anything to what they have right now on the roster. Tyler Lacey, Yasir Abdullah, right? Like, the depth is not there at either line of scrimmage for the team, and they have big gaps along the offensive line on top of it. There's no depth there, and they have an open hole at center and right guard now. It is, the whole offseason is line of scrimmage for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've thought that before. It's even more obvious now.
It is, but you say that, but they do need secondary help. They might need 2
There's
safeties.
no doubt they
certainly need 1.
No doubt they do.
Need a corner, right? They need wide receiver help, something, whether that's a frontline guy, whether that's a 5th pick in the draft or a top 10 pick type guy or not. They're still going to add there. So I know what you're saying. I feel like the offensive line, and I felt this way. We did our first roundtable for the 1010XL draft guide. What are your 3 biggest positions of need? To me, that this is prior to Mitch Morse announcing the retirement, but it was offensive guard, safety, and corner, not necessarily in that order.
Sure.
Because I feel like if I had to line up and play today with the options I have at defensive tackle, I could do that and patch it together. Armstead, Mason Smith as your /3 technique rotation right there. And maybe Jefferson does turn into something. Maybe, you could squeeze a productive year out of Devon Hamilton. I don't know. But these other ones, you basically don't have anybody. No good options to turn to. One option that people had been looking towards potentially in the wide receiver market, Gus Logue brought him up in hour number 1 today. Tutu Atwell is not an option anymore as the Rams have re-signed him to a 1-year, $10 million deal, or agreed to terms on a 1-year, $10 million deal with Atwell, who obviously, had some familiarity with the Rams connections on the Jaguars coaching staff and front office. So he's not going to be an option for the Jags moving forward. I wasn't banking on Tutu Atwell being the guy, but nevertheless, one more door not open for you at the moment.
Yeah, it's an off season for the Jaguars where pretty much anything they do, you're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, there's not going to be, I don't know what the move they could make would be right now that it would be like, why would they sign a guy at that position? There are enough holes on the roster. They have to figure out exactly how do you put together a plan where you do have to address 2 starting positions on the offensive line, the depth on the defensive line, maybe a couple starting safeties, a starting corner, and your second best wide receiver is the guy that you just let go, and the third best guy on the roster is the guy that was as big a disappointment as anyone on the roster.
But imagine all this being the same and having Trent Baalke be your GM right now. And what the cloud that would be hanging over this franchise.
The reason all these things exist, in part, is because Trent Baalke was the GM. Like, he left the mess.
Sure.
Right? It's partly on him, and they have to figure out how to dig out of where they're at right now with a bunch of these different positions. There's a reason they don't have any depth on the offensive line. They didn't draft it well enough.
No.
There's a reason they don't have any depth on the defensive line. They didn't draft it well enough. Right? They just have no impact from the later picks that they've had at those spots.
From the later picks in particular. I mean, we talked about, the building block players. And you look at them and you're like, well, those are all bulky draft picks. But we also talked about, well, there are only 2 that you really feel anywhere good about on the offensive side. And Phil, you have to name 5 in a top 5. And by default, they're going to be younger guys who you consider building blocks. So, of course, they're going to be his draft picks from recent years. Most of the feedback today on the Chad and Sandy real estate question of the day, we asked, what's your reaction to the Jaguars deciding to release wide receiver Christian Kirk? Is like, hey, good guy, good player. A combination of that, but he's injured too much, some drops. It wasn't worth the money. Wish him the best. So there's no great, oh, my gosh, what are we going to do without Christian Kirk kind of feel. There's some people, hey, I'm surprised, didn't see it coming. Well, I don't know if I definitively saw it coming, but this is high on the list of possible moves that the Jags could have made this offseason to procure some more cap space. So now they, creeping up around with the Mitch Morse retirement. And yes, you got to replace him. But again, you had to find your long-term center answer anyway. And, look, if he went down in week 1, it's no different. You're just going to save a few extra million against the cap. So you're roughly at a $50 million. There are plenty of teams with more than that, but you got more than other teams out there as well. And still other ways to create some room if necessary. So we'll see. It's an exciting time, though, for me. Like, Tone, there are a lot of holes, a lot of questions, but I'm looking forward to the fact that we've got different guys providing the answers, whatever those answers turn out to be. And right now, it's going to be fascinating to see. Maybe Drew Dahlman's high on their list. Maybe they don't think he's a good fit for what kind of scheme they want to run. And they do go the Ryan Kelly route or somewhere else, or they leave that as a whole and they address guard. And who knows, man? But, the thing is, by this time next week, we'll at least know some of it because we'll be 24 hours into it at this point, 7 days from now. So with all that, let's get ready to welcome in Helmets and Heels.
Now, the 2-minute drill. Serviced by Cool Cats Heating and Cooling. Locally owned and operated. We're your neighbors. Find the coolest cats in town at coolcatsjacks.com.
All right, hello, Taylor Doll. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. I know you talked yesterday about Christian Kirk.
We did.
No longer going to be a part of the team, but now we know that the Jags have to find a center as well, and Mitch Morse. And again, it was going to be a stopgap situation, but stopgap with a guy who maybe, as Pete Prisco said, didn't play his best football down the stretch. I think most people would say he was the most consistent offensive lineman they had, though, last year, which is a damn shame, but it was a fact.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about that, and we've also mentioned that was the only positive out of the free agent class last year, too, when we go back to all of those moves. And I guess the Eric Armstead, we'll see, just because they weren't really playing him in the right spot. But Mitch Morse was one of the ones that towards the end, throughout the season, we were saying, well, at least you got Mitch in this group of guys, and that was about it.
And you're going to have to get something out of Gabe Davis.
Yep.
I mean, just because the way his contract is structured, he's going to be a part of this football team. And, I said it a bunch last offseason. At the time you signed each of them, Gabe Davis was so much more accomplished than Zay Jones ever dreamt of being. And Zay turned out to be a solid player for this football team. And I thought that Gabe could do the same kind of thing. Not being number one.
Yeah.
Maybe he was hurt. He certainly did look heavy, and he didn't flash that speed that he had in Buffalo. So maybe we get a bounce back season from a guy like him, a guy like Eric Armstead. Got to hope that we do.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, because I was pounding the table, honestly, about Gabe Davis, saying the same thing. And when we were talking about, when you're looking at all of the little intricate numbers of what he did in Buffalo, he was the red zone target in Buffalo for the entirety of the last few years, and he had like the highest red zone target percentage of touchdowns in the NFL, and then you get here and it just completely dies.
Right, he was good for like 750 and 7 touchdowns every year.
Yeah, that's what it was, and that's what I was expecting and hoping. So hopefully that's something Liam Cohen can bring back out, because it is something he can block, and you like that, but you want to be able to see more out of somebody that you are spending money on. So
all right, 200 catches for Brian Thomas Jr.
Yes,
he should be going number one in your fantasy drafts right now. All right, Taylor, what's coming up today?
Yeah, so this week we've been breaking down, we've gone through position groups that of Jaguars need, our top 3 in the draft that we like. Today we're going to do 2 position groups. We're going to do corners and safeties. So we're going to break down me and I's top 3 in both of those position groups of who throughout the draft, maybe it's a first rounder, maybe it's someone in the 4th round. We'll do that. And we also have Michael Giannetti from Spot Track coming on. He'll break down some of the money side of what's going on with the Jaguars and in the league, and some of the expectations now that we're about to hit free agency.
Malachi Moore is always the guy we get in the 4th round in our 7th-round mock. So I expect him to be mentioned today on Helmets and Heels. Have a great show.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Taylor Dahl with us, and she'll be with you for the next couple hours along with Mia O'Brien. We thank Gus Logue today from Duval Rundown at 1010XL, and, of course, Pete Prisco of CBS Sports as well. Tony, that was a interesting day
for show,
Jaguar football. Tom McManus joins us tomorrow to recap the week in its entirety as we head into the last weekend before NFL free agency. That'll do it for us. For Tony Smith, Dylan Denmark, I'm Mike Dempsey. Thanks for listening to Jaguars Today on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.